Rising Yamzo has definitely given us a show today. This time, much different lobby. In the distance, we see a little bit of Degen and Larson there too. So here to mix it up. Reminder, if you are just tuned in and watching this qualifier weekend number 1 for the first time here at the FNCS, there's a lot going on. These games are all running at the same exact time. There are lobbies rolling back to back. Players don't really know who they're going to be queued into. So you could be contested one game and then not the one after that, right? But ultimately, I think it kind of raises the difficulty bar in some ways, but you can also find in other ways a little bit of room, right? Especially when it comes down to how much of a player skill gap there is, because you can get a little bit of everything here so far.
Well, that's certainly one thing that Larson and Degen are trying to establish right now, Monster. It's that room to work with. They want space, and with Yamzo and Rise, so close quarters, potentially Yamzo, Rise as well, we can create some space of their own. If they can find successful eliminations, instead it's going to be the backside taken fully advantage of. Rise and Yamzo caught between two separate teams now while they find an elimination on one. They have to worry about the duo that came in after the fact, and it's Omizi, it's Dash, who will find the finishing blow there onto Yamzo and leaving Rise in this solo position alongside of the other duo. You got Trick there, who had just lost his duo to Rise and Yamzo, but Rise trying to make Omizi and Dash possibly think that he's already left the area, but you can tell they're sitting on that reboot card. They know that Rise wants to try and get a reboot going with the Yamzo.
Yeah, and if he could get there in time, it's not too late to just jump into the Pleasant Plaza and potentially go for a pickup. I also see, I believe that might be a Rift Island off to the side there too. So definitely some options here to work with. Rise just waiting it out, biding his opportunity here. Trick gets all the information. Obviously, he can hear what's going on here, and he doesn't move a beat. He doesn't move an inch. Frozen in place. Rise, there it is. Reboot van scouts it out first, and I guess the call comes out. Yam's like, nah, bro, just play it out. It's all good. That's what he's gonna do here. Max material, plays as a solo. It's not bad. He still make some work with this.
Could possibly just be Rise, though, waiting for some of those teams still hanging around to rotate forward, and then he might look for the reboot ban opportunity, but definitely more than capable to play it as a solo if need be. So we'll just have to keep tabs on Rise, see whether or not he gets that reboot possibility onto Yamzo. But aside from those two, Zypha, sure, they're also hanging out here, right by Pleasant Plaza. And for Zypha and Shore, you've got the audio cues coming from just above you as far as those shots being fired are concerned. But they haven't necessarily gotten active just yet. Same can't be said, though, for Source and P-God, putting a lot of pressure right now onto Lacey and Jivy underneath them. And Jivy's got to be careful with some of these peaks, with Source kind of altering some of these edits, getting some good visuals down below. He knows that there's definitely a team to take advantage of for possible refreshes, even though they're looking pretty solid as far as a loot is concerned.
Source here, already on the fly on in. I like the situation like you mentioned, though. The loot is looking pretty decent. Sniper in hand, too. Can we see something explosive come out of it? There it is. Used to break the wall. It's one way to bust your way into a conversation here. Pretty aggressive so far from what we're seeing. I'm thinking they recognize something we don't. The pre-edit comes through. Oh, that was just gross. Makes it look too easy. The walls were already opened up, completely exposed there. That's just some pro player tech right there. Cam Slam on the high ground now. 6 elims for Cam Slam and Aminished. Okay, this is a pretty decent game for them so far. Pressure coming in, though. No one wants to give them hype for free, and they got to move.
It's just watching somebody's builds get sprayed non-stop, and you almost expect it. You're like, okay, you guys can chill now, but Baba and Trix, they're definitely not trying to let Cam and Aminished have height for free. But Cam definitely has a lot of solid material, so build's not necessarily too threatened, but gotta be careful because 93 can rapidly turn into 13 as we start to get into these moving zones.
Big tags coming in here. High ground, still getting comfortable here so far, Taco. They're just kind of easing their way in. No pressure from down low. No difficult questions to answer just yet. Smooth sailing here as we're approaching this 10th zone so far. 500 above the surge here for Source and PGod as well. And there's a little bit of an eerie silence as far as the fights are concerned here. Most of these layers kind of chill so far. Low ground, not too much going on. There it is. Finally, players start to fall. One's going to be to the hands of PGod there. 4 more need to fall before the surge deactivates for a second.
This is just one of the more spread out lobbies that we've seen in some of these tighter zones. It's kind of impressive at how everyone has kind of managed to find their own little cubby, their own little corner. And now, as the zone continues to pull back, Shore, Zypha, they're aware of the fact that they've got teams directly next to them. It's going to be Blink, actually, be the first to get aggressed upon and will get knocked. Nice refresh there for Shore. Gets a decent amount of builds off of it as well. And we'll use that to tarp through that secondary height layer. But tapping back into Source and PGod. PGod, having found another elimination, means that they've got a little bit of this low ground under a decent amount of control. Now Source just trying to see if he can find a clear path forward. But DJ and Larson more or less in the same boat, just looking slightly worse for wear here as Larson's gonna expend these last couple of small shield potions.
And also just 35 builds too, so pretty tough spot to be in. Meanwhile, 4 builds just on Zypha here as he's running even less at this moment. They need this big elimination here if they can grab it, but something doesn't feel right. The calls made to just hold off for a second. They are just close to that top 20 placement as well, so plenty of options to be made here, or I should say top 10 placement. PGod by himself here, jumps all the way to low. That's it. That was his last mat right there, Taco. This is it. He will have to play for elimination, but no, the wall falls down. No protection is there. Zypha behind Shore here, both very hurt. Caught, zone, too much damage.
Larson and DJ now. Larson finding a brief moment to actually get some utilization out of his Mega back to full HP. And now it's Larson, it's DJ taking the immediate charge forward. That's going to be a nice elimination there onto Jack, as now DJ tries to collect the other onto Timeless, but no, instead DJ turned on Larson, split from his duo only momentarily. Doesn't have any sort of heals either, just has to depend exclusively on managing to find some sort of miracle refresh here. But with only 3 builds left, MDF, it's looking a bit grim, and sure enough, Perezi will get the final elimination blow there. A decent run attempt, though.
Aminished Cam Slam, though, remember, did hold the high ground this entire time successfully, and again, we talked about it felt easy for them. They were really cruising their way through, almost frictionless, as they just battled their way towards the end game and almost picked up a double-digit elim, so that has to be a very respectable game for them. 9 elims to close that one out is pretty solid this late into the tournament run. And remember, the queues are starting to slow down now. Your chances, you're probably on your last games for all we know. That right there was a big opportunity for them.
All about making sure that, hey, you might not have started the day strong, but if you can get a strong finish on the day, that's another way to look at things. And for Aminished and Cam, definitely impressive by the fact that they weren't challenged on the high ground, but they're not the only team that's looking to take height. We've also got our desk to break it down even more for us.